Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Future Friday. In today's episode we're going to take a look at very unique topic is using train as batteries. So let's dive right into it. Now first you have to understand the problem. What the hell is the problem? It's basically grid itself is not smart, grid is dumb. So you can check my video about smart grid here, but point is right now grid is very dumb. So we have to balance what we call supply and demand. So whatever the power is being produced must be consumed almost instantaneously. There is no lag here. Like you have to, let's say 500 megawatt is being produced, it must be absorbed, as in must be consumed. If not, it will damage the grid itself. So we always have to make sure within certain tolerances that supply and demand is matched. Now without it, grid becomes unstable, and especially if you have national grid, you can collapse a whole country just by messing up one power plant. So for this reason, we always try our best to do what we call grid matching. Now to do that, currently what we employ is called peak power plant. Now many of you know who have worked with power plants or things of that nature. Power plant have what's called base load, as in this is the power that they can provide 24/7 into 365. Now this power, it's max efficiency. So let's say you built a coal power plant, you're gonna make sure it runs at 100% capacity. It's not like car engines or diesel generator. It's meant for running at 100% capacity. Of course, little bit here and there is there. It's not like it's meant for 100 megawatt. Let's say one generator, you can't get 110 megawatt. But point is, it's like at that capacity, whatever it is rated to, whatever power plant it is generally at max efficiency, be it nuclear, be it coal, be it natural gas, be it petroleum based. So for this reason, all power plant always have exact output. So in this graph you can get a very clear idea. It's like that 50, let's say this is a power plant or hydropower plant, you have 1500 megawatt that is coming out of it. Okay, cool, everything is awesome. Now that 1500 megawatt that is coming out of it has a constant cost to it. Like, okay, I'm gonna charge you, let's say 1 cent per kilowatt, whatever it may be. So when you exceed this, like let's say the environment or let's say your consumers started to demand more power and this cannot go up, it's already at max capacity, we employ something known as peak power plants like these. Now these power plants are generally run on natural gas, sometimes petroleum, sometimes diesel, but these are puppies that can start very quickly and give a lot of power to the grid. They come in the size of like 100 to 500 megawatts. So they're not supposed to run 24/7, but they are there in case your demand exceeds production capability, and they are generally shut down at night. Now as you can understand, building something this big, this complex, and only using it once in a while means the electricity that is coming out of these plants are very expensive. It's upwards of 20% to 50% to sometimes multiple times more expensive what it is from a coal power plant or whatever have you. So for this reason, people don't want to use this. Now is there a solution to this? Yes. Let's say during daytime your power consumption goes high, there is a very good chance during night your power consumption goes down, but your power plant is still producing. So if you can store that power and then sell it back to the grid when at the time of need, you can replace this or at least reduce the time they need to be up. So this is the problem. That's why we want grid scale power storage. You can check my video on grid scale batteries here. So point is, I'm talking hundreds of megawatt, 500 megawatt, 5000 megawatt. So at this scale you can balance an entire nation without causing grid outages. So do we have any practical solutions? Well, if you check my video, I go over details, but right now I will give you a TLDR version of it. It's basically we have small batteries, something like this. This is good for small communities where it can balance the grid. Awesome. Like let's say small solar farm, small wind farm, and small village. This is perfect for that. Upwards of 30 to 100 megawatt capacity. This is awesome. Then we come to large battery. Right now there is no large battery as in like more than 1000 megawatt capacity battery in construction. So I can't exactly say, but you can check out flow cell batteries. Now these batteries have multiple advantage over lithium ion. They are not as dense, however they do have the ability that you can store power indefinitely in them. Basically you charge them up, they don't discharge on their own, and when you're talking about megawatt scale, they actually start to become cheaper. So in these puppy you can store upwards of 1000 megawatt or something of that nature. Now again, that is not big enough to to the biggest storage system we have. It's called pumped storage. Basically, you have a hydro dam, and it generally pumps water up a reservoir. Now when it's pumping, it's called charging. Now when peak demand happens, and let's say your hydropower plant cannot generate more power, it will start discharging this pond, and during that gravity discharge you will get extra electricity. Now this system is generally starts at 500 megawatt to 2000 megawatt or something of that nature. So this is quite successful technology. However, you can understand, first you have to find a place where you have abundant water, then you have to find a place where it has abundant height variation. It's not like you have a flat land and you have a sea there, it's gonna help you out. You need so it's kind of very location specific. Now height is very easy to find, but a sufficient amount of water is not cheap. So these are our options. So problems with all these systems is always in these three tiers. First is cost. Like you can build lithium ion battery banks for 1000 megawatt or 5000 megawatt. It's just going to cost you more than the GDP of many small countries. So as you can understand, it's not feasible for everyone. Pumped hydro is very good, but it does not scale down. So let's say you have a small village, you can't really give them pumped hydro. And again, let's say you are a country like India, there are only few places where we have this pumped hydro storage systems, because you need height variation and you need water supply. So kind of very complicated. So these three always ends up bottlenecking our grid scale energy storage. Cost, scale as in how many megawatts we are talking about, and location, where can we establish it. So what is this idea of using train as battery? Well, using rails, as you can see, normal track rails, we achieve what we call very low rolling resistance. Basically, the amount of energy you are spending to rotate the wheel goes down so significantly that you can move 1 ton, let's say, on these wheels with a basically horsepower equivalent that you would need for, let's say, 10 kilo. Basically, a simple horse can pull a much bigger load, and if you have motor that is only, let's say, 500 horsepower, it can pull very large load. Not at high speed. Speed is different, but I'm talking about moving large mass. It's very efficient. So we want to use rail, and we want to use gravity. Now gravity is the medium how we are storing the energy. So it might sound out how the heck gravity can be used to store energy. Well, it's what we call gravitational potential energy. Same way you push water up and you drain energy from it, this is exactly the same. So you will have train tracks that is going up a hill or a gradient. Now this gradient cannot be like exactly straight, it has to be slopes, because that wheel on wheel, steel on steel reduces friction but also reduces traction. So you cannot have very sharp incline, because the train will not have enough grip to climb on it. So let's say 10% gradient or 5% gradient is achieved. So during charging cycle, you're gonna send electricity to the railway, and it's gonna like this, gonna move up the incline, and once you want to discharge it, it's gonna fall back. Now basically you are using gravity as a storage medium, and using concrete. Why concrete? Well, it's cheap. Second, and you want to make sure the footprint of the mass is very small, so you losses that you occur using air resistance goes down. To give you a context of all this, think of it this way: pumped hydro can go as high efficiency as 80%. That's the maximum you can go. Like some new designs that are in construction right now should reach 90%, but it's no way near batteries. But again, pump hydro is talking about 2000 megawatt, 5000 megawatt. So for that reason, people are okay with it. These puppies should be somewhere around that, somewhere around 80 to 90% efficient. So what are the pros of this situation? First, it's water independent. I told you, like more often than not, you will find a place where you have a very convenient gradient for you, but it's not necessary that you will find abundant water supply for that. So this makes location very easy. Second, the capacity matters here. Like for instance, the small project they want to build, that starts at 50 megawatt. Like that's a significant amount of energy storage, and that's a pilot project that they are working on. You can find the links down below. So it can be scaled up to very large capacity. And not to mention, let's say you build the track, let's say you did all the things, you have one positive track, one negative track, as in one for charging, one for discharging, and you have, let's say, 100 megawatt capacity going up and down. Now you can add extra train and you still increase the capacity. So your land footprint does not always double by doubling the capacity. So there is a lot of room of growth, and that's why the bigger you make it, the more cost effective it becomes per gigawatt. Basically how much money you are spending per kilowatt to store, that goes down dramatically. So this is the whole idea, and the diagram that I am seeing here, I'm not sure about this, but it would be pretty awesome. But what they are targeting is for 3-phase overhead wire. So many of you know we generally have 1-phase wire. There are some railways in this planet that uses 3-phase wiring system. I do not know how they work. Generally they have 2 pantograph on top for 2 wires, and third one is one of the rails. But again, I do not understand how that will work, because that is a live wire. Both 3 will be live wire. So there are ways to do this, but if they did that, it will look pretty cool. So have 3-phase wire on top, or 2 on top and 1 bottom, because that's how it's done generally. So there are a lot of pros with the system, because if you're talking about let's say this plant is being tested near a wind farm, you have to store a lot of wind randomly. Like you're talking about megawatts of power that is extra produced, you have to store it quickly. So this system allows that. So are there any consequences to this? Well, yes, it has way too many moving parts. Like an electrical battery inherently has no moving part. You can have entire system where you have charging cycle, discharging cycle, and outside of cooling fans, you have almost no moving part. That means the overall efficiency is very high. Even when you are considering the efficiency loss that happens when you are converting, AC into DC and DC into AC, you're still talking about 95% efficiency. And that is one core component about hydro. That's why it loses so much efficiency. There are so many moving parts. This has, as you can see, that's a small train that I'm showing you. It has so many parts. So this does drain your efficiency. So, and not to mention, this also increases your maintenance cost, and it does have large footprint, because let's say you have flow cell battery or lithium ion battery, you can stack them on top of each other, and that way you can reduce the footprint, the hectares of area you need to buy for a few megawatts of storage. It's gonna be very small with batteries, but it's gonna be mind-bogglingly large when you're talking about this thing. Now that itself is not that big of a problem, but this only works at large scale. Now this may not be a very big issue, but does bear mentioning is that this is not something that you were gonna give a small let's say there is a small community, only few thousand people live there, but they have their wind system, they have their solar system, they have their wave power system. You can check my video about wave power here, and if they have all that, that does provide a lot of power, but provides unbalanced power. Like sometimes they will have too much, sometimes they are too little. So to that community, you can't expect them to build this. This is not feasible at small scale. However, they can do very simple batteries, banks. So this is the consequence of it. Now this was my presentation of battery bank used as a train, or vice versa. I hope you liked it or learned from it. In that case, please leave a like. If you didn't, don't worry about it, you can dislike it. I would urge you to share it amongst your friends, #S2T, and please subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.